So, pretty recently, I found this book sitting outside my house. Um, and it's interesting because the pathway in front of my house, the sidewalk there, is not very often walked upon. It's not a very high traffic area. Um, there are like a couple parks nearby, so maybe someone was walking between the park and their house and this fell out of their bag, but it was just there, and so I kind of, it's my book now. It had been sitting there. It looked like it had been sitting there overnight because it was pretty early in the morning when I got to it. But yeah, and because I realized that I hadn't read you guys any Rudyard Kipling, despite the fact that he sits in a interesting but close place in my heart. I realized that maybe this was, the universe's way of saying, hey, you gotta read them some Kipling. So, this is The Man Who Would Be King and Other Stories. Rudyard Kipling has written a lot of interesting stuff. Let me see if there is a better list of his other works here. Is there? No, interesting. Okay. Well, at any rate, the stories that they have available here include, let's see, I know he's done a lot of short stories. The Phantom Rickshaw, The Strange Ride of Moroby Jukes, The Man Who Would Be King, which is the titular one, Wee Willie Winkie, and Without Benefit of Clergy. So, let's see how the back describes him. Winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1907, Rudyard Kipling lived from 1865 to 1936, drew upon his experiences in Anglo-Indian society for much of his writing. This volume presents 5 of Kipling's best early stories, including The Phantom Rickshaw, a psychological thriller, Wee Willie Winkie, a delightful display of love for children, Without Benefit of Clergy, the poignant story of an Englishman's affairs with an Islamic woman, The Strange Ride of Moroby Jukes, and this celebrated title story. So, he was an Englishman, an author and a poet, who spent a lot of time in India back when it was still under British rule. And so he has a very interesting perspective on a lot of his writings. A lot of it takes place in India, but from a colonialist British perspective. And being Indian myself, it's fascinating. There aren't really any other very well-known popular writers who write about India at all, and his writings provide a very different perspective from the India that I know and love. So I quite enjoy reading his works because of that. So I'm going to start with reading the first one, which is The Phantom Rickshaw, which they described as being a psychological thriller, but we're only going to get about maybe 5 minutes into this, so we might end up at a cliffhanger or a part where nothing quite has happened yet, but you'll get a sense for what his style is writing and his description of what India is like, which is really what I'm going for with reading this. Okay, so it starts with a quote. May no ill dreams disturb my rest, nor powers of darkness me molest. Evening Hymn. One of the few advantages that India has over England is a great nobility. After 5 years of service, a man is directly or indirectly acquainted with 200 or 300 civilians in his province, all the messes of 10 or 12 regiments and batteries, and some 1,500 other people of non-official caste. In 10 years, his knowledge should be doubled, and at the end of 20, he knows or knows something about every Englishman in the empire, and may travel anywhere and everywhere without paying hotel bills. Globetrotters who expect entertainment as a right have, even within my memory, blunted this open-heartedness. But nonetheless, today, if you belong in the inner circle and are neither a bear nor a black sheep, all houses are open to you, and our small world is very, very kind and helpful. Ricket of Karmatha stayed with Polder of Kamawan some 15 years ago. He meant to stay 2 nights, but was knocked down by rheumatoid fever, and for 6 weeks disorganized Polder's establishment, stopped Polder's work, and nearly died in Polder's bedroom. Polder behaves as though he had been placed under eternal obligation by Ricket, and yearly sends little Rickets a box of presents and toys. It is the same everywhere. The men who do not take the trouble to conceal from you their opinion that you are an incompetent ass, and the women who blacken your character and misunderstand your wife's amusements, will work themselves to the bone in your behalf if you fall sick or into serious trouble. Heatherley, the doctor, kept, in addition to his regular practice, a hospital on his private account, an arrangement of loose boxes for incurables, his friend called it, but it was really a sort of fitting-up shed for craft that had been damaged by stress of weather. The weather in India is often sultry, and since the tale of bricks is always a fixed quantity, and the only liberty allowed is permission to work overtime and get no thanks, men occasionally break down and become as mixed as the metaphors in this sentence. I like that. That's deliciously meta. Heatherley is the dearest doctor that ever was, and his invariable prescription to all his patients is lie low, go slow, and keep cool. He says that more men are killed by overwork than the importance of this world justifies. He maintains that overwork slew Pansay, who died under his hands about 3 years ago. He has, of course, the right to speak authoritatively, as he laughs at my theory that there was a crack in Pansay's head, and a little bit of the dark world came through and pressed him to death. Pansay went off the handle, says Heatherley. After the stimulus of long leave at home, he may or may not have behaved like a blackguard to Mrs. Keith Wessington. My notice is that the work of the Katabundi settlement ran him off his legs, and that he took to brooding and made much of an ordinary P&O flirtation. He certainly was engaged to Miss Mannering, and she certainly broke off the engagement. Then he took feverish chill, and all that nonsense about ghosts developed. Overwork started his illness, kept it alight, and killed him, poor devil. Fight him off to the system that uses 1 man to do the work of 2.5 men. I do not believe this. I used to sit up with Pansay sometimes when Heatherley was called out to patients, and I happened to be within claim. The man would make me most unhappy by describing in a low, even voice the procession that was always passing at the bottom of his bed. He had a sick man's command of language. When he recovered, I suggested that he should write of the whole affair from beginning to end, knowing that ink might assist him and ease his mind. He was in high fever when writing, and the Blood and Thunder magazine diction he had adopted did not calm him. 2 months afterwards he was reported fit for duty, but in spite of the fact that he was urgently needed to help an undermanned commission stagger through a deficit, he preferred to die, vowing that at last he was hag-ridden. I got his manuscript before he died, and this is his version of the affair, dated 1885, exactly as he wrote it. And that looks like where we're going to have to stop, unfortunately. So it looks like we've gotten the setup with this, but not the actual story, which is unfortunate, but you have some of a sense of how Kipling writes, where, describing the way he describes the world around him, the way he will sometimes throw in these meta comments about whatever he's just written. I like the bit where he says, become as mixed as the metaphors in this sentence. Like I said, it was deliciously meta. He sets up this interesting story of a man who, it sounds as he describes himself to be mentally ill, possibly schizophrenic, because it sounds like he's talking about seeing and hearing things that aren't really there, but then having the schizophrenic man write his experiences, and this story, psychological thriller, is going to be the story written by this man, so this will be an interesting read. I will read the rest of it on my own time, and let you guys know what I think about it. So if you're curious, you can head over to my Facebook page and find out. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.